Well, good afternoon, intentional livers.
Uh,
Marty Keller and John Donovan here for our now bi-weekly podcast on intentional living,
hmm
taking a look at all issues surrounding living the life I want to live and the obstacles thereto.
There you go.
Marty Keller here in Sacramento, John Donovan in Oceanside, California, where the heat hardly ever gets above 80.
Yeah. Yeah. Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
Uh, yeah, we have a cooling trend. It's only 90 degrees here today, so
Yeah, that would be unbearable down here.
I know, I know. But just like you, I got my ceiling fan whirling away above me and
hmm
keeping it nice and cool.
Cool.
So, hey, it's been a couple weeks. We were last on with our colleague Dan Gutierrez, and
hmm
since I saw you last, we finally, after 2 years, hit over 100 subscribers.
I noticed that.
And
I saw that.
so, all of you who like this podcast, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscriber button. And let me also suggest if you like this podcast, you may know other people that you think might benefit from the information here. So, please feel free to invite others who might be open to the message that we have here on this podcast. Please invite them to check us out, and they might find something of value for their own lives.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
let's not keep this hidden under a bushel basket. So we thank you for your support. And one of the recently, you and I got an email from somebody who's started to watch our podcasts and apparently watches a lot of them. So now that there's 2 years worth, it'll
Yeah.
take you a while to go through all of these podcasts, my friends, because they're each about an hour long. So, but she caught us saying in one of our podcasts, if you'd like us to discuss a topic or you have further questions about what we're up to here, please let us know. And she sent us an email with a number of very interesting questions. So if it's okay with you, John, I'd like to put those on the share screen so that our viewers can see them and read along with us.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can't tackle these things and see if we can make any sense of it. So she writes, I'm very interested in hearing how the accountability practice correlates with or differs from the 12 steps outlined in the big book and how they correlate with or differ from the ACA 12 steps. I would love to hear you both unpack each of the steps in detail around the accountability practice because it is my intention to fully integrate the steps into the practice and also to enlarge my understanding of how they relate and let go of aspects of the steps that may not actually be helpful to me in dealing with childhood trauma. I do have an understanding from listening to Tony A's explanation of the ACA steps and how they differ from the AA steps and why he wrote them differently. And I've listened to that quite a bit, but I'm just very curious how each of those come into play in the practice that you both use each day in relationship to step work. I'm also interested in the topic of faith, not as a religion, but as in putting your faith in the hands of a higher power who loves you. But when you've had childhood trauma, you don't quite know how that feels at an emotional body level. In other words, how does the idea of faith and the accountability practice come to fruition and impact each other? So I
Wow.
see I see basically two general questions. One has to do with the relationship of the accountability practice to the 12-step practice in its different formats, AA, ACA, Al-Anon, and so forth. Um, and noting that ACA might be the only 12-step program that has two separate 12 steps, Tony A's and the official ones. And then the
hmm
question of faith and the relationship of faith, love, God, and accountability practice. Does that do you hear that as an appropriate summary?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. There's
Yeah, we may not complete
three,
it in this podcast, and that's fine.
let's, yeah. And if I'm just thinking out loud here, we can take one of those questions um, or references and go over them and then see how many that that would give information to the other questions too. I actually would like to start with the faith
Okay.
thing. I have no idea why I just said that. Other than,
And it's okay to not know.
yeah, other than um, my experience of the 12-step themselves, the 12 steps themselves, was that what I read wasn't what the 12 steps said. And I'll get to how that fits into the accountability practice.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take these down then. If we can bring them back up anytime we want to refer to them,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Yeah. My definition of faith is believes in something without physical evidence or empirical evidence. It's like a short version of my and the information I offer in the intentional living is that there's our experience creates memory, and our memories, like an iceberg, 1/8 is conscious that I can bring to mind, not like I know all that's in there at one particular moment, but I can recall and I can bring to mind. And then 7/8 is below my subconscious. I don't know it's there. And my life, the result of that total package of 1/8, 7/8 subconscious memories created the life I had pre-recovery. Alcoholic, mean, violent, coercive. And that was created by something that I didn't know. And this is like a leap, but that's the definition of faith. Me being being in a situation and not understanding the situation, and yet finding myself, the results are alcoholic, mean, coercive. And that was created by something I didn't know.
So can I stop you there for a sec?
Yeah.
So just to either feedback or say it differently, it's as if you had a creed that said, here's how you need to behave.
Correct. There. Yeah. Thank you for that.
But you couldn't
Yeah.
see it. You didn't
But
know
I
that
couldn't.
you
Yeah.
didn't know that those 10 commandments about that were existing in your subconscious.
Right. Like people are dangerous. People
Right.
will hurt you. I'm not worthy, and those are all below my conscious level. And I actually created a life where I had evidence that people were dangerous, people will hurt you, I'm not worthy. And I had no idea where the motivation from that came from. So the life I created from my family of origin childhood trauma was created out of a belief system I had that was not available to me, to my conscious, was in my subconscious. And me experiencing myself as alcoholic, mean, coercive, I did not like myself. And when I discovered this information about everything in my life, the results of my life today are in alignment with childhood trauma. Now, where I was in my life pre-recovery was isolated, afraid of people, afraid of social situations. And the behavior I had impacted the people around me in a detrimental way. And yet the motivation for that was inside me. It was how I interpreted interpreted my childhood trauma, the perceptions I had about that all being subconscious. You know, I knew when I first got into recovery, they started talking about family of origin dysfunction, and my response was, I had a good childhood. I mean, my parents worked most of the time. We didn't go without heat or utilities a lot, and we very seldom went hungry, and we went hungry. And I didn't count my dad's rage and violence on a nightly basis, or his drunken stupors, or police coming to the house. That was all, that was okay, because I normalized that. And I had created a life out of something I didn't know. And so I don't know if that even speaks to faith. I don't know if this is on the right track here, Marty.
Well, can I offer you something?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I'm relating it to my own experience, is that reacting to those circumstances required us to find some place of safety that felt safe inside of us, and that's what led to creating a defense, which led to this belief system.
Correct.
So the faith that we had as little kids is, if only I do this, I will be safe.
Yes.
And then, of course, we learned, as you were saying earlier, we then started projecting, well, you know, certain kinds of people aren't safe, or all people aren't safe, so I need to stay away from them. And all of those beliefs, because they were just beliefs, they weren't true necessarily.
No.
They were just the beliefs that a little child had to adopt in order to stay safe and survive what felt like a massive, even existential threat.
Yeah. Yes. You know what I'm trying to say is, people say, well, faith is something I got to work towards it. No, it's already in you.
Exactly.
It's already the faith you add in whatever you learned, and then you put it in your subconscious. Actually, from that, what you made of it, your perception of it, created everything in your life. So we're already operating under this belief, not having evidence, and
or having
accountability,
or having evidence, but not having all possible evidence.
well, not having a rational reason for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So the evidence we had was the violence in our environment.
Yeah, and this gets complicated, because if you'd asked me, I would have told you I'm a nice guy.
Right.
I didn't see myself as violent. I saw the gang members and biker guys and beating each other up, and I saw that as violence. I was not violent, and yet almost every word that came out of my mouth was coercive or caustic or sarcastic or demeaning in some way, which is, I think, worse than the physical violence. Because physical violence you can point to and go, oh, that was violent. And emotional and verbal, it's very difficult for you to like hold on to that and say, this is what you did, and that hurt, when actually we live in a society who sanctions that language. So we get stuck. Here's what I'm trying to say, I think. Let me try. You already have faith. Take a leap. It's like, okay, what do you want? And this accountability practice gives you an experience like going to the accountability tree, owning the end results, taking a breath, like I'm mean to the point of cruelty. I took a breath, I take breaths, and then I say I intend to be kind. And then I find myself different. I find myself either noticing how cruel I really am at the beginning, wow, I'm really cruel. Everything that comes out of my mouth is cruel. To where I find myself today, getting the feedback that I'm safe to be around. One person I was talking to said, "Your eyes are kind." It's like, how did? Okay, I did that by replacing the old information from my trauma. You're not good enough. People are dangerous. People will hurt you. With, I intend to be kind. I intend to be gracious. I intend to be a loving, caring, nurturing spouse, father, and participant in my community. It happened based on that intent. I walked into those things just like based on the intent. I'm never going to let this happen to me again, or I'm going to make sure that I control my environment, or see if something's coming. That hypervigilance happened because of what happened to me as a child. Everything we do in the accountability, living intentionally, touches and affects the subconscious, and the behavior automatically changes. And then you actually have a demonstration that telling the truth about where you find yourself. I'm an alcoholic. I'm mean. Taking a breath. I intend to be sober. I intend to be kind. You find yourself there. I remember one point in my recovery where I thought about taking a drink and it disgusted me. I actually drew back. That is way different. And that difference was everything I affected in my subconscious that is now manifesting out of my subconscious is what I put in there instead of what my parents put in there, my teachers put in there, my society put in there. Be a good boy, be a good man, get it right. And I find myself living authentically. Um, so um, everything we do is operated under faith when we don't know it. And use it. Get on. I don't know if I'm making sense now.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about this before, but we haven't emphasized it. So the way I put it is, you cannot not believe. You
Right.
cannot not believe. We're always believing in something.
Right.
And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there's actually a physiological basis for that, in the sense that the information that comes to our brain through our five senses is delayed and filtered.
Correct.
So that even by the time we think we're seeing light, there's been a little manipulation of that light through the eyeballs, the retina, and so forth, the lens. So there's a sense of belief that's subconsciously attached even to the data coming into our bodies through our five senses.
Okay.
So we're always believing something. So what I take away from that in the accountability practice is that, if that's true, and I can test it, and if it's true, then I can believe in something different.
Yes.
And the same power that allowed me to manifest anxiety and isolation from other people, sarcasm, and all those kinds of things, the same energy that allowed me to believe that that was necessary can allow me to believe in something completely different.
Correct.
So what I take away from this is that we can harness that faculty of faith consciously and intentionally.
Yes.
And then the question is, can I trust that my new intention will manifest that which I say I want? So for me, I intend to create a world of peace, joy, freedom, community, and health. And all I can say is that's the world that I wake up to in the morning now.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
believe
That example.
that that's true. And it turns out that's my experience.
Yes. Your example of light. I used to wake up every morning, dawn, pre-dawn, and have this feeling of dread. And pre-recovery, I didn't even notice that it was odd. During my recovery, I started noticing I have this feeling of dread in the morning. So morning light meant, as a child, I was going to go through some chaos, some abuse, and not that I could articulate that. It was just dangerous and abusive, and I needed to pay attention. So I had this feeling of dread. Now, when I see morning light or I wake up, become lucid, I go right into my intent place. I go into greeting the day. I go into, what am I going to do today? I intend to. In fact, I got this ritual where my phone alarm goes off, hit the snooze, and I go right into, I intend to be healthy today. I intend to exercise. I intend to be kind. And same light, completely different experience. And you know, this internal work, this recovery work, there's science of mind. They started using science and connecting it to spirituality. Spiritual science, science of mind, because the scientific method says, do this experiment, and if it's demonstrable and reproducible, it becomes true. If it's reproducible across the board. So when me doing this accountability process, I can demonstrate a change in my life. I've watched other people do the accountability process, and they demonstrate a change in their life. So this is demonstratable. It can be, I don't like to use the word, I don't like the word evidence-based, but there's evidence that this works. I collected the evidence that people were mean most of my life, half of my life. And it's true. I could take somebody point and go right there, that person's mean, and they'd agree with me. So I had the evidence that this person was mean. Now I look at that person that I used to look at, and I see wounded, hurt. I see the opportunity to set a boundary. I see the opportunity to connect. Same person, same type of energy, only I see it different. And it happened to me because of my willingness to do this process of owning where I find myself, alcoholic mean, taking a breath, creating an intent, and affecting that subconscious pool of information. That's where my action comes from. Today, after 34 years of sobriety, I'd say 20 years of accountability, I find myself different. That's a demonstration that me looking at myself, learning about myself, affecting a change in that subconscious part of me is effective. It works, and it manifests. Everything that I'm manifesting today is manifesting from that 1/8 of my consciousness, because I'm focused on my recovery, and that 7/8 of what used to be this pool of trauma that kept me on alert or in some kind of survival chemistry mode, fight, flight, freeze, please. And I very rarely find myself in a chemical state of adrenaline or stress. And when I do, there it is again. And I take a breath, just notice the stress. I'm irritated, I'm agitated, I'm self-criticizing. Take a breath. Oh, there it is again. It's coming up. I intend to love myself. I intend to be kind to myself. I intend to forgive myself. And it works. And it's, that's the mystical, all the secret societies and mystical schools held that information, that we have the power to create our life. And I'm not saying it was wrong that they held the information. We've come to a point on a global scale where we're ready to start looking at our creative capacity, our capacity for just believing something and then it manifests. I before my recovery, I didn't believe I was a kind man. I would tell everybody I'm a nice guy, but that's not kind. I can say definitively that I'm kind today. And that happened by my intent affecting the subconscious pool of information, reframing a trauma, feeling the pain of that by the statement, I'm mean. Well, yeah, of course I'm mean. Oh, yeah, I intend to be kind. And I get feedback, my own internal feedback and feedback from the people around me that I'm safe to be around.
You know, it's interesting that the root Latin word for that gives us our word evidence is the Latin word to see.
Ah,
Evidence, like video, visual, evidence.
visual. Oh, wow. I certainly, I was blinded, now I can see, is that,
Right.
yeah.
We know there's another part to her question. I'm going to put it back up.
Okay.
That could transition us into the 12-step question, and it has to do with the higher power.
Correct.
And the role of the higher power in accountability. So
yeah.
what she says is there at the bottom, says, I'm interested in the topic of faith, not as a religion, but as putting your faith in the hands of a higher power who loves you. But when you've had childhood trauma, you don't quite know how that feels at an emotional body level. In other words, how does the idea of faith and accountability, we talked about faith generically. Now here, I think she means the idea of faith in God or a higher power. How does the idea of that faith and the accountability practice come to fruition and impact each other? And I think it's worth tackling that because the 12 steps are definitely based on faith in a higher power.
Okay. I want to no, they're not. See, this is, it never says there is a higher power or that you should believe it. Let me recite the first three. I'm powerless over people, places, and things, alcohol, and my life is a man. And then that's just a realization that every time I try to change this, it didn't work. So I'm powerless. My life is just this routine of abuse and cycle and chemical use. Okay, I realize, okay, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I'm powerless. That is not something, when I first read it, I said it. It's different feeling the powerlessness over the specific topic, which is either my violence, my rage, because I would yell at people, and inside I'd be screaming, "Why are you doing this? Don't. There's no. It was stop." And I found I couldn't. So that's what I was powerless over. That feeling of powerless, helpless, hopeless is a body sensation. It's not a rhetoric. I don't know if that's the right word. It's not a statement that I say and then something magical happens. It's something I embody. It's a drop. It's like, oh my God, that's step one. Now, I want to get right to step two because people read, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Then they go, I don't know about God. It doesn't say you know about God. It says came to believe that a power greater than myself. So that means you don't have to believe. You don't have, it says came to believe. But people read it as, now I got to believe in a higher power. What are you kidding me? Because we equate our God, our higher power, to the mirror that our parents showed us. That's why the God in the Catholicism works really well for me, because he was a punishing, jealous, vengeful God. I could relate to him, and I didn't like him. And then the 12 steps come on and say, your higher power, you got to believe in your higher power. And I go, screw you. No, I don't like that God. That God, in fact, I've been living most of my life trying to get away from that God, denying that God. But it does not say that. It says, I came to believe, could restore me to sanity, that a higher power could restore me, that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. What's a power greater than myself? Oh, how about the group? That's a power. That's a coming together in a place of energy. It doesn't say God, but anyway, okay. Let's go right into 3. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to God as I understand God. And my first response was, hell no, screw you. I'm not turning anything over to that son of a bitch, because I had this image of what he was. It does not say that. It said, make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. I understand that he's an asshole. Okay, I understand that I don't like him. I understand that I refuse to believe that. That's my understanding. So I make a decision to turn my will and my life over to my understanding, which is there is no God. Well, okay, I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to this. I don't know. I'm going to do it though. I'm going to make the decision. That's what step 3 says. And we could go into the rest of the steps. I was at a meeting one time, and an old timer, probably looked like me at the time to me, said, what do you say? Oh, you're the most intelligent you can come up with, the best you got you to come in this room. And I thought, oh my God, I don't like this. I don't like what I just heard him say, because I don't want to believe that. Well, guess what? That's what the accountability intentional living says. Your experience, how you put it together, the beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior that you develop from your experience, childhood trauma, and the expectations that you have, got you here where you can recognize that there's something you're missing. There's something you want that you don't have. I'm saying the same thing. That's the same thing that intentional living says. The best you got, your experience, beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior, and your expectations got you here. So I tell people, I want to tell you that in a different way. And that different way is what I'm telling you now is, being you've identified that you don't have something, you haven't embodied it, that everything you think, say, do, choose not to think, not to say, not to do, is the obstacle. Which it gives people a feeling. I say that to them, and I said, when you hear me say that, what do you feel? And so they feel something, and I want to offer, it's close to powerlessness, it's close to hopelessness, close to I'm screwed. It's a body sensation. And that's what the first 3 steps were designed to do, only we read them like text instead of embodying them. And the intentional living, everything I think, say, do, choose not to think, not to say, not do, standing in my way, is like, are you kidding me? Where do you feel that? In my chest. Okay, that's a feeling. That's an emotion. No matter what you thought emotions were, no matter the idea you had of being emotional, hearing that and then paying attention to your body is your experience of your emotional feeling body. And then I say, I'm not saying this for you to understand it cognitively. I am saying this so that you drop into a feeling, because the way out of where you are is through your feeling body. I've taken people through the first 3 steps that had a lot of years in 12 step, and I've taken them through that way and they've dropped into this helpless, hopeless, powerless place. And then I talk to come to believe, not you have to believe before you come. It's like, that's what we were told as children. You have to know before you do. And in fact, you get punished if somebody asks you a question you don't know, because they expect you to know the answer. Well, you don't know. So we do that to ourselves. We think we have to come up with what the answer is, and so we don't go. Or we fake it, or we make believe like, oh, I know the answer to that. Yeah, I can come to believe that a higher power. Some of the things that I've done in the 12-step actually were shown to me. People would say, I don't believe in a higher power. And one of the old timers would come up to him and say, here's the rock. Put this in your pocket. For now, that'll be your higher power. Don't try to figure it out. Just be here. Be with that. And after a while in the group, there's a feeling of belonging, a feeling of safety. And it's sometimes takes a long time or never. The accountability intentional living process is my concept of the next level of recovery. 12 steps work really, really well. They've saved millions of lives. And for me, they fell short. I was sober and I was doing what white knuckling, and I was still violent. I was still mean. I was still alone. I was still isolated, and I was sober and I wanted more. So I was gifted with this information. The accountability tree process holds the whole 12-step process in one practice. I mean, feeling I intend to be kind. And then you want to tell everybody about it. It's like, anyway. I actually wrote a letter to the Adult Children of Alcoholics World Organization asking if they thought it might be a good idea to include the accountability tree process in the Red Book. Because the accountability process is like a Reader's Digest version of the whole 12 steps. Because you get into your feeling body, you're accountable. You're step 4, made a list of my resentments. Step 5, told myself and God and another human being. And 6, became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. You're naming the defects of character. That's another step where people read, I got to get rid of my character defects. It doesn't say that. It says, I skip my mind right now what it does say. Let me look it up. Anyway, let's go to step 7. Humbly ask him to do it. Let me look up that step. Maybe you could fill in while I'm looking.
What?
Excuse me.
Well, a couple of things while you're doing that, if I could go back to the first 3 steps, just as you were sharing that, I never thought of it the way I'm hearing you say it, which is not only the first step, but actually the first 3 steps you can ask somebody to say and then ask them how they feel upon saying it.
Yes.
Not just the first step, but I get why that's a powerful statement. I'm powerless. Okay, how do I feel when I say that I'm powerless?
Right.
Secondly, came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to, as Tony A says, clarity.
Right.
How do I feel when I say that?
Right.
And take a look at, following the accountability practice with each one of these steps. Made a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of a higher power as I understood this higher power. Okay, how do I feel when I say that?
Right.
What shows up in my body?
Right.
I suspect you can do that with all 12 steps.
Exactly.
I hadn't thought that all the way through because some of them are more action oriented. So making a list, I guess I can say how I feel about making a list, but it's the making of the list itself that elicits the emotional response. So I was just thinking in that, as you were sharing that, the first relationship of the accountability practice to the 12 steps is conceiving the statements, at least in the first 3 steps, as statements that elucidate or elicit, I should say, an emotional response.
Correct.
And then ask myself, what's going on? What is that? Whatever it elicits, I feel fear, I feel anger, I feel resentment. And then having owned that, I can then move toward, stay with the feeling, what do I want? And that's why I would heartily support, as you and I and others have worked for the last few years to try to create more integration between the 2 programs, because it rarely says that explicitly. Even in the Red Book, you have to kind of dig around in the Red Book to find that. I mean, it's in there that feeling is the goal here,
Right.
but it's not stated in the steps.
No.
Anywhere.
No.
It's implied.
Let me. This is in alignment with step 6. Step 6 says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. It's not a do statement. It's a becoming ready statement. It's like, and when I first read it, it was, oh, I got to get rid of all my character defects. It doesn't say that. But that's what I read, and I worked real hard getting rid of them, which created a lot of resentment in me, which created a lot more violence coming out sideways, because I'm thinking I'm a good guy owning all my character defects and getting rid of them. So we're entirely ready to have God. That's a high energy word. We're entirely ready to remove all these defects of character. Well, okay, list them. I'm mean. Take it to the accountability tree. This is where intentional living addresses each character defect. It doesn't say get rid of the character defect. It says own the character defect. We're entirely ready to have God remove all of my defects of character. How do I know what they all are? I name them. I am arrogant. I'm mean. I'm controlling. I'm needy. I'm entitled. Okay. It doesn't say now I'm perfect because I've said all these things and I've got rid of them. No, I didn't get rid of anything. I just stated in the accountability tree process, I'm going to ask people to own a character defect. No blame, no judgment. The ability to account for where I find myself. Arrogant. I'm arrogant. Take a breath. That creates a feeling tone. That truth, I'm arrogant, is in alignment with what happened to me as a child. And that little child's experience now is validated. This is going to be odd, and I'm going to say it. I'm mean to the point of cruelty. I'll use that one because that's one of my favorite. I'm mean to the point of cruelty. Validated that little voice that says, you are never going to do that to me again. It was like, yeah, you're finally listening. I've worked real hard to make you mean to the point of cruelty so people didn't hurt you. And there's a validation. This is all subconscious. This is not something within. This is something I ferreted out, watching me doing it and watching other people do it. There's this sloughing. There's this spaciousness that happens. And I just own I mean the point of cruelty. I didn't get rid of it. I'm dropping into it. Means the point of cruelty. There's a feeling tone. And from that, in that intensity, frequency of truth, I say, it is my intent to be kind. It fuses with that, validates the pain from my inner child. Yes, I've been working real hard. Thank you for paying attention. This is counterintuitive. Drops back down into my subconscious, healed, reframed, attended to. which makes it a different frequency that I act now from. And that act now from is what people think they don't have, which is faith. It's that what's in there manifests. In the Bible says you will know them by their works. Well, you can take that and beat people up with it. Like, that guy's an asshole, or he's stupid. Okay, no, that's not what it says. Wherever you find yourself, you will know what's in your heart. Not that it doesn't say your fault. It doesn't say beat yourself up, you're going to hell. It doesn't say that, but people read, I mean to the point of cruelty. Ah, yes. It is my intent to be kind. Yes. Now, the works or my behavior after that is different, are different, because they're now being motivated by this energetic frequency of a mixture of abuse and the vow I made, you'll never do that to me again, or people are hurtful, people are spiteful, stay away from them, to, oh my God, maybe I'll just take a breath here and not like run out the door or start screaming and yelling, or what my normal behavior was. I have options now. I don't have to scream and yell because the toast is burnt, or go and whatever. I like the toast is burnt because I remember making a big deal out of that in my pre-recovery days. It's like, oh my God, please stop. No, just check the dial on the toaster, put another piece in, you're okay, John. So I sure hope this speaks to her question.
You want to finish? You want to finish going through the steps?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you were at the 7th or 8th. Are you reading? Are you reading the AA 12 steps or what?
Yeah,
Okay.
AA 12 steps.
Thank you.
And Tony A's are a bit different. They're a bit more softer. Humbly ask him to remove step 7. Humbly ask him, which is, you know, not according to the Me Too movement. It's the wrong pronoun. Humbly ask him to remove my shortcomings, our shortcomings. Well, I intend to be kind. I'm mean to the point of cruelty. I intend to be kind. And then trusting, watching, attending to where I now find myself. Me making the statement, I'm mean to the point of cruelty, and then feeling that, the impact on me and the impact on the people around me, specifically my children and my ex-wife, and then saying it's my intent to be kind, is humbling. It is so damn humbling. It hurts. It's like, and I feel that hurt. So humbly ask him, where is God? He's in you. How do you ask you? Oh, you say the truth, where you find yourself, character defect. Take a breath, don't fix it, just say it, drop into it, the reality of it, the frequency of it. It's healing. Like, what is this? I intend to be kind, and I automatically find myself in a different behavior. Maybe the difference is, at first the difference was I became more aware of how violent I really was, how many times my mind was stuck in this loop of watch out, don't trust, and everything that came out of my mouth was in alignment with that. So the difference was I noticed how extremely violent, not only to them, but to myself I was. So yeah.
I'd like to offer an observation, see what you think.
Okay.
So let's acknowledge that this language was written almost 90 years ago.
Yeah.
So and then Tony A came along, and I way prefer his version of the 12 steps for ACA, adult children of alcoholics, than the other one. And we're running out of time, so maybe we can pick that up next time. the
Oh,
Tony,
wow.
the Tony A stuff. But
Okay.
when I say, I humbly ask God to remove my character defects,
My
I think,
shortcomings, yeah.
or shortcomings, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can hear that through the ears of the accountability practices. I humbly ask for the effects, the impacts of these defects to be replaced by what I'm about to ask for, or about what I'm about to
Yes.
say I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So the
Wow.
act of feeling the impact, I'm cruel beyond belief, or
Yeah.
I love being in debt, whatever it is,
Right.
that feeling the impact, that body response that you did so well to describe, that
Yeah.
that's removal
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
Now, it may not be permanent because I may need to do this over and over again, but that's removal.
Yes.
And it's faith. The faith is that this removal means something.
Yeah.
This feeling that I'm having of relaxation, of clarity, whatever it is, has power for me now.
Yes.
Now, I don't know that in that moment because I'm just having a feeling, but I can have a belief. I can latch on to a belief that, just as I have a belief I'll never change, I'll never get better. How many times do I hear that in
Yep.
meetings?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how long is this going to take? In that moment, I can now use that belief power to say, this is going to make a difference, and it's what I want. And so then I go on to say specifically what I want instead.
Yeah. And you have evidence afterwards that something changed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's that process of ownership, character defects, step 6. All these is a big list for me when I first started. It was an extensive list. Truth.
Almost as many, almost as long as Deuteronomy.
Yeah, almost. And then it is my intent to be kind. So I've done the I mean to the point of cruelty, I don't know, several hundred, 200, 500,000 times. And each time I do it and I feel this slough, there was still something in my subconscious that was holding on for dear life, for my survival, to not let this go. I go, oh, I get another piece. I get another piece of this, and it is my intent to be kind. And then I find myself going weeks and months without necessarily having to, or noticing that I want to be accountable about this judgment, this projection, and then as soon as I recognize that it's a judgment or a projection, I now run to the accountability. I go, I'm excited. I'm going to put this right at the top of the tree. I'm still mean to the point of cruelty. And it came out on the freeway this morning. I intend to be a defensive driver. I intend to be gracious. I intend to get to work late.
Yeah, I give myself permission.
I give myself permission to get to work late so I don't kill somebody on the way or myself.
Well, we just have a few minutes left. Let's see if we can get through the rest of the steps before we wrap up.
Okay, 8, 9, 8 is make a list and become willing to make amends to them all. 8 is after 7. Most people get, I'm in 12 steps. I'm gonna make my list. Whoa, 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 whoa. You got 7 steps to go before you make that amends. Because if you make that list now and you go make amends, it's you doing more harm because you don't know exactly what that means. So I've counseled people. They say, I want to make amends. Well, no, hold on, don't do it. No, I'm going to make amends. They deserve my amends. And I said, okay. And they went and re-traumatized their family or whoever, boyfriend, girlfriend, by expecting something from me, saying, I hurt you. Like, now are you going to love me? It's like, no, that's not amends. Please don't do that. And then step 9 is go ahead and doing it. And so that was a combination of 8 and 9. 10 is, I think you know that one, is noticing
continue to take inventory, and when I saw I was wrong,
Promptly admit it.
promptly admitted it.
And that's the accountability. Oh, there it is again. That
Yep.
irritation came up again. Take it right up to the tree. Okay, we got 10. 11, sought through prayer and meditation, increased my conscious contact with my higher power, seeking only the knowledge of His will in my life and the power to carry that out. My first response to that step was, screw you, I'm not turning nothing over. And then I discovered in my journey, oh, whatever we call this God, quantum field, has my best interest in mind. So why not turn it over to something that has my well-being? It's like that dawned on me, I don't know, 20 years into recovery. And I go, how did I not see this? Well, I was seeing it through the lens of family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, my idea of God, and turning anything over to anybody was, I'm gonna get hurt, until I did this work. And then I was gifted with this awareness that, oh my God, the universe, nothing happens to me, everything happens for me. What I used to heal, it's an opportunity for me to show compassion. It's an opportunity for me to return love in the face of hate. It's an opportunity. So yeah, now step 11, I'm going to get into some prayer and meditation and turn that over to this benevolent energy that has my best interest in mind. Not only my best interest, but your best interest in us together. And then step 12, to continue to carry this message to those unfortunates. Well, yeah, I want to tell everybody, only I wait for them to ask. I'm not out proselytizing. It's like, you need this. No, you don't. I'll show you who I am. And if you're interested in how I got here, please ask me. I'll give you the information. Otherwise, it's none of my business. That's a short synopsis.
Well, there's way more that we can unpack here, and so we took we got to start at it. I would like to have that conversation about the Tony A's steps and the divergence, because Tony, just for those of you who haven't seen the Tony A 12 steps for the adult children of alcoholics, which I if you're interested, I recommend you can go Google Tony A 12 steps and get a copy of those.
Yeah.
But his 12 steps focus on learning and committing to loving ourselves.
Correct.
And so like the 10th step that we just read is continue to take a fearless moral inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And Tony A's version is continue to take a fearless moral inventory and to love and approve of ourselves.
Right.
And I think there's a vast difference, and I think that resonates much more directly with what we do in the accountability practice. But that's a topic for another time, because we've run out of time.
Yes. Okay.
So I do appreciate your willingness to share your thoughts about this. You didn't really go into it in this podcast, but you are a veteran of 12 steps for many years. And for those who don't know John very well, John has spoken at many adult children of alcoholics national and international conferences, and so the conversation of the relationship between these two practices, I think, is timely and practical. Did you ever hear back from the national office?
No, I just sent the letter.
So. Okay, well, good for you.
Okay.
All right. So, as always, John, would you be willing to share any last thoughts, last word on a topic that has no last word?
I came to the realization today of gratitude that I completely get it, that I know more than I understand. And so that realization, it's like, okay, just stay calm. Wait for the question. Let's not go too fast here, because there's more I'm coming to understand, even about the material I have on the board. I'm coming to understand it at a deeper level. I was graced with this information, inspiration, and I'm grateful and willing to give it away. I'm a blessed man.
And I'm a beneficiary of that generosity. So
Okay.
I'm here to testify.
Okay.
So anybody who's listening for the first time or this early on, after we're done speaking here, there'll be John's email and my email address if you'd like to participate in any of the meetings that we sponsor to where we actually do the work of helping people go through the tree, that is to identify the truth of what's really going on and the feeling nature of being willing to face that and setting an intention for something different. There are 5 meetings a week, and the information is available also on John's website. John, what's your website?
DonovanCounseling.com.
Okay, so DonovanCounseling.com. Please feel free to check that out. There's meetings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and they're all initiated here on the West Coast, so it's all Pacific time. But everybody's welcome. You can come to a meeting. They're all on Zoom, so you can come to a meeting and you can participate, or you can just listen. One of the things that I loved about this process from the very beginning is that there was no requirement to participate, and that the person who chooses to say nothing is valued as the person who has a lot to say. So,
yep.
So
Exactly.
Please feel free to kick the tires of this process and join us. So, John, thank you very much as always for your time and wisdom. And
thank you, Marty.
We'll pick this up in a couple of weeks.
You got it.
All right.
Hey, Marty. Love you.
Love you too, John.
Okay. Hey.